Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring Legend Quest Omnibus Edition. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this classic fantasy old school style role-playing game, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time I am going to give you examples of skills, and I am also going to talk about damage, fatigue and death and other details. Let's start with skills. They are organized alphabetically and they have indications as to which category each skill belongs to. You're going to find skills based on knowledge, strength, agility, etc. Let's start with acting. Acting is the ability to play the role of someone other than oneself. This can be useful either for entertainment, impersonating someone specific, or impersonating a type of person. When resisted, the target is allowed to resist with his or her knowledge. There are also optional rules and clarifications. For example, animal handling. This is the control of animals. This can be used to have animals perform tricks they have been taught, to keep a herd of steers in a group during a drive, or to calm down a nervous mule. You have the optional rule determining how many animals you can control or interact with at a certain time. Then we have armor. The armor skill is the ability to wear armor without being hindered in combat. The armor skill cancels the attribute reduction of the armor worn for some tasks, but can never cause the attribute reduction to become positive. If the armor skill levels are equal to or greater than the attribute reduction, there is no modifier to the character's combat abilities. Armor skill can cancel the attribute reduction for initiative, parry, dodge, ranged combat, horsemanship, rounds, and run computations. Armor skill does not affect any other agility skills. Armor will interfere with the sleight of hand, acrobatics, and other agility-based skills, no matter how many armor levels the character has. There's also artillery. This is a genre skill. It includes the group skills, ballistae, catapults, and rams. Then we have bookkeeping. This is the ability to maintain financial records of all types. It includes conversion rates and mathematics. Shopkeepers, caravan masters, and adventurers could use this. We also have cooking. Cooking is the preparation of a meal. This includes frying, baking, grilling. Resistance would come from the fact that some meals are more difficult to make or from a lack of proper tools. Then we have drums. Drums is the skill with all percussion instruments. Drum is one of the music group skills. We also have optional skills such as dirty tricks. Dirty tricks is the clever and innovative use of the environment to distract an opponent. More than just throwing sand in someone's face, dirty tricks can be used in any situation. Of course, many people do see it as cheating, but many others see it as survival. Then we have gaming. Gaming is the playing of games of skill. This includes chess, checkers, and other similar games. When playing against one another, both characters use a competitive task. Then we have flails. Flails is a group skill. It includes the melee weapon specific skills, Morning Star, Ball and Chain, and Flail, of course. There's also magical power. Magical power is the ability of a mage to collect magic from the environment for use in a spell. Magical power can be either in a specific school or in wizardry. Wizard magical power can be used for any mage spell, while specific school magical power can only be used for the specific school to which it is linked. Mages can have more than one type of magical power, but each skill is independent from the others. Wizard magical power is not a group skill and does not add to specific school levels. A caster with both power levels would use either one or the other, but not both together. We will talk more about magic in a future part of this review. Then we have melee. Melee is a genre skill. It includes the group skills, swords, axes, spears, clubs. Obviously, these more general or universal skills are going to be more expensive to obtain. There are many other skills, such as metalworking, move quietly, pick locks, range weapons, sculpting, selling. There's a skill for any sort of situation or task that you will encounter in your adventures. Now let's talk about character condition. There are two factors that together show a character's condition. These are life's blood and fatigue. Life's blood is the character's physical condition. It represents how much physical damage the character's body can take. Life's blood is reduced by the character being wounded. Fatigue is the character's mental condition. It represents how much mental strain the character can take. Fatigue points are reduced by prolonged action, the use of magic and mentalism, or by some attack spells. When one of these factors is reduced to 0, the character passes out. If both of these factors are reduced to 0, the character is dead. So concerning life's blood, every character can withstand a certain amount of damage before he or she becomes unconscious. The character's life's blood represents this damage. Every character has life's blood points equal to his or her endurance multiplied by 6. Every time a character is wounded, the damage is subtracted from this maximum life's blood. When the character's life's blood is reduced to 0, the character lapses into unconsciousness. Any extra damage beyond the character's life's blood will reduce the character's fatigue. Let's talk about bleeding damage. At the end of every round, when a character is seriously hurt, either from combat or from some other reason, the character will start to take bleeding damage. Bleeding damage consists of two parts: life's blood and fatigue. After a character has dropped below 50% of their maximum life's blood, the character will start to bleed to death. Every round until the character is successfully bandaged or magically healed, he or she will lose 1 point of life's blood, if at 50% to 26% of his or her total life's blood, or 2 life's blood points if at 25% to 0%. Even if unconscious, the character will continue to bleed, and the life's blood loss will reduce fatigue. A successful first aid roll of bandaging or healing magic will stop the bleeding. Failure in the first aid attempt does nothing. Every time a character takes bleeding damage, the circumstances for a first aid attempt change, allowing another attempt after a failure. At the end of every round a character is wounded to below 75%, the character loses fatigue points. The loss is 1 fatigue if at 75% to 51% of the total life's blood, 2 points of fatigue if at 50% to 26%, and 4 points if at 25% to 1%. A character with no fatigue left will not lose any more fatigue from bleeding. If the character is bandaged or healed magically, the fatigue loss will stop, except if the character engages in vigorous activity. A character below 75% life's blood will lose fatigue points at the end of every round in which he or she engages in a fatiguing activity, whether bandaged or not. The fatigue loss ends when activity does. There are several optional rules to handle this. For example, you could rule out that neither fire nor poison can cause bleeding damage. Or perhaps bleeding damage is ignored altogether. No weapons cause bleeding damage. Or maybe bleeding damage can only be caused by criticals. So using one or more of these optional rules, because I just gave you a small sample of them, can make the game a bit more cinematic or grittier, deadlier. Let's talk about healing. After a character has taken life's blood damage, they will most likely wish to heal. Healing can only take place if the character does nothing but heal for at least a day. Any less time will not allow the natural healing processes to work. While the character is healing, he or she will recover life's blood points equal to their endurance per week, or endurance divided by 7 per day. This process assumes that the character is not engaged in any stressful activity, including physical or mental training. The healing process can be accelerated by the use of certain skills. Now going back to fatigue, every character has a certain number of fatigue points. The fatigue points equal his or her willpower multiplied by 6. Certain attack spells, the casting of spells, extended combat, and lack of sleep can all cause the character to lose fatigue points. If the character's fatigue points are ever reduced to 0, the character passes out from exhaustion. If the character loses more fatigue than his or her maximum, the extra damage is typically applied to the character's life's blood. During any round in which a character is seriously fatigued, For whatever reason, the character will not be able to perform at his or her optimum abilities. At first, the character's initiative will be affected. As the fatigue continues, their skill rolls and defense abilities will decrease. Now, when it comes to fatigue recovery, fatigue can be recovered much faster than life's blood, and at a rate dependent upon the character's present fatigue level. The more fatigued the character is, the quicker the fatigue recovery will be. For example, if the character has a present fatigue of 0% to 25% of maximum fatigue, he or she will regain 2 points of fatigue for every turn, that is 10 seconds of rest. This shows the character catching his or her breath. If the character is between 26% and 50% of maximum fatigue, he or she will regain 2 fatigue points for every minute of rest. Using this method, most characters will find the time to regain fatigue up to the 50% level, but not much more without a full night's sleep. This means that after taking fatigue damage, most characters will be operating at 51% to 75% of their maximum fatigue points. If for any reason a character becomes unconscious because fatigue equals 0, it will take 30 minutes before he or she regains consciousness. There is an optional rule for resting. Regaining fatigue points through rest requires an uninterrupted period of time. Many environments will not allow such an uninterrupted break, no matter what the character is trying to do. Unfamiliar environments will be especially difficult to rest in, as the slightest sound or strange feeling might interrupt rest. So this is very realistic. Imagine yourself in a hostile environment. You must find a perfectly safe camping spot with a lot of tranquility around it. Now, when it comes to staying awake, any character can stay awake for 10 plus endurance hours with no adverse effects. After this period, the person will begin to become fatigued. For every hour a character attempts to stay awake past this limit, the character will take 6 points of fatigue. Now, when it comes to life after death, as with many high fantasy games, death does not always finish a character. The resuscitate spell can be used to bring characters back to life. This spell has its limits. It cannot revive a person killed by a soul-sucking weapon. It cannot revive a person who ate feast food too long. It cannot bring the undead back to life. Resuscitate needs a viable body to which to return life. Turn to glass or stone spells require a restore spell before the victim can be resuscitated. Decapitated corpses cannot retain life. Disintegrate spells cause incredible amounts of damage to a body. If disintegration causes far more damage than the person had points, portions of the body could easily be missing and need to be regenerated before life could be restored. There is even an optional rule: rotting. Rotting is perhaps the most common and dangerous problem with death. A corpse will begin to rot immediately upon death. Finding a resuscitate spell within a day should allow life to be restored without problem. Resuscitating a body that has been dead for several days might work, but the person could be subjected to the rots. This odd disease is akin to leprosy, but can only be contracted through this method. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about character creation. As you can see, this is a very realistic simulationist role-playing game. There are optional rules, clarifications, nuances that you can apply to your games, to your campaigns, to control how realistic or unrealistic you want your game to be. I think there are enough high fantasy elements in this role-playing game, so my personal recommendation would be to run things as gritty as you can, while you keep all of those magical effects and spells, of course. I think that would strike a nice balance, and because of all of the skills, you can also play out sections of the character's life that you would ignore or hand-wave in other role-playing games. Perhaps half of the day you are running your tavern, you are crafting your goods, you are cooking, hunting, gathering, building structures, and the other half of the day you go out on adventures, taking on those dangerous sites, undertaking missions and quests, and so forth. In fact, if you make things as gritty and lethal as possible, with all of the complexities and nuances of life's blood, of fatigue. Combat should be avoided at all times, or at the very least, fight all of your battles with the advantage on your side all the time. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending right through RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.